So you might have thought of losing some weight or just getting healthy overall. These foods are your friends. The first food I'd like you guys to focus on are eggs. Now, eggs are one of the most underrated foods, and that is because of the stigma that has been attached to eating eggs, as if eggs are bad or as if eggs are the sole factor that contribute to increased blood cholesterol levels. Well, that's not true. Eggs are actually one of the healthiest sources of proteins and healthy fats that you can actually get. Now, speaking of high cholesterol, most of high cholesterol is actually due to familial hypercholesterolemia or other diseases related to the cholesterol. Some people just have very few LDL receptors. Some tend to have much more LDL receptors. Now, the LDL receptors in your liver, they actually detect the LDL-C, the low density lipoprotein in your blood. If you have more LDL receptors on your liver cells, on your hepatocytes, what actually happens is you will actually have less cholesterol because you will be detecting more and more LDL on your receptors. Well, on the other hand, if a person has very less LDL receptors, he would have much higher cholesterol. That is because now your liver is not detecting the true amount of LDL that it should, and that is actually causing that high cholesterol levels. Because eggs are actually really great source of vitamins, especially B vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins, and many other minerals and microminerals. The other thing is they're really good sources of protein. Good pasture-raised hens actually have eggs that are really high in omega-3 fatty acids. And I've talked a lot about omega-3s in my previous videos. Omega-3s are actually one of the best sources of fats. They have been shown to reduce inflammation in the body, reduced autoimmune incidences, reduced chances of cardiovascular disease, reduced chances of dementia, cancer, even diabetes. They also have CLA. Now, CLA is conjugated linoleic acid. If you eat eggs from pasture-raised hens and hens that are solely fed a grass-fed diet, rather a grain-fed diet, your eggs would be really high in CLA. And CLA is actually shown to decrease your fat percentage. Your overall body fat percentage would decrease if you take CLA. Many people, they add CLA or other forms of CLA in green tea supplements or in weight loss supplements. Well, the best source and the natural source is actually eggs. The second thing I'd like to talk about is leafy greens. Now, leafy greens, especially kale, spinach, collards, Swiss chard, and many other leafy greens, and even cruciferous vegetables like Brussels sprouts, cabbage, they have a lot of thylakoids. Now, thylakoids are a class of chemicals that when you ingest them, they increase the satiety factor in your food. They actually make you feel more full, and they decrease the appetite. So you would actually be eating a lot less calories if you're consuming leafy greens or cruciferous vegetables. So there was a research done in which they gave 5-gram supplements of thylakoids to patients. In 100 grams of spinach, there is about 5 grams of thylakoids. They gave 5-gram supplements every day to people randomly on 2 different locations, and they found out that those that were taking the supplements had lower body weight and lower body fat percentage compared to those that were not taking thylakoid supplements. If you eat your leafy greens or cruciferous vegetables with good quality fats like butter, like lard, like olive oil, or avocados, you would actually be increasing the uptake of flavonoids from your gut. Leafy greens are also great at providing vitamins, like eggs. The next thing on the list is fatty fish. Now, fatty fish includes salmon, mackerel, trout, sardines, even tuna. But I would recommend you to stay away from tuna because these days tuna has been shown to contain very high levels of mercury, and mercury is actually not good for you. It deposits in the lungs and causes many harmful effects that are similar to those of heavy metals. So I would recommend you to stay away from tuna. But the other fatty fish like salmon, fresh caught salmon, is actually one of the best types of meat you can consume because it contains omega-3, really high amounts of omega-3s, both DHA and EPA form of omega-3. In modern day research, it has been shown that fish, when compared to any other form of protein on planet Earth, is more satiating, is more fulfilling, And that is because it does not only have protein, it actually also has vitamins and micro minerals like zinc, copper, selenium. That's really good for your immunity, for your vitality, for overall body function. And you know, when you are actually low in selenium and low in zinc, you are more prone to immunosuppressive actions in your body. You are more prone to opportunistic infections like fungal infections or many other bacterial infections. So make sure you consume good quality fish that comes from good quality fisheries or is wild caught. Wild caught halibut is also another good source of protein. Wild caught fish actually also contains iodine. Now, in modern day diets, it has been shown that those that do not consume iodinized salt, that consume regular salt, are actually deficient in iodine. That actually leads to low levels of thyroid hormones. We as doctors are trained to find out if a population has less iodine levels. In certain places in Japan, in the Mediterranean, they found out that there were communities of about hundreds of thousands of people that were deficient overall in iodine, and that led to hypothyroidism. They had puffy cheeks, they had these fat, puffy hands, overall lower body metabolism, body aches, and they were overall lethargic. So getting good amounts of iodine in your diet would actually help you increase your metabolism by just increasing your thyroid hormone levels. The fourth point is fatty cuts of meat. Now, you might be eating, even me, before I actually did research on nutrition and diet, I would regularly be eating lean cuts of meat that were actually more expensive than these fatty cuts. But turns out, lean cuts are actually not as good as fatty cuts. If you are getting good grass-fed quality meat, the fat would be really high in omega-3s, in CLA, conjugated linoleic acid. Once again, we talked previously about CLA in eggs. Well, grass-fed meat also contains CLA. In the breakfast, if you have protein as your first meal in the morning, you would actually feel much more satiated if you ate cereal or fruit juice like we are shown in these TV commercials, TV shows, movies. These actors consuming fruit juices or cereals that are not good. These are marketed to kids, and kids these days are actually shown to have much more incidence of cardiovascular disease. Kids at the ages of 12 or 14 are showing up to clinics with atherosclerosis, high blood pressures. So a kid of about the age of 14, 15 showed up at the clinic, found out that his blood pressure levels were about 150, 160 over 120 or 110. And that was not because of pheochromocytoma, which we actually thought it might be. When we got his VMA done and other testing done, it showed that it was not the adrenal hormones or the epinephrine causing it. Rather, he had widespread atherosclerosis in his arteries, and he would be consuming a lot of sugary drinks. His triglyceride was like 350 or 375, and this kid was really miserable when it came to the quality of life. So make sure you don't give your kids, or you don't even consume cereal yourself as a morning snack. One other thing I'd like to say is, do not go for processed meat. Processed meat has actually many chemicals and preservatives added to it. It destroys the taste, it destroys your health, increases your chances of cancer, especially colorectal cancer, esophageal cancer, and stomach cancers. So make sure you stay away from processed meat. If you are cooking it for longer periods of time, for example, cooking a brisket or cooking those ribs, that could actually cause colorectal cancer and many other cancers because of these polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. When the fat drips off these red meats and collects at the bottom, it eventually converts to polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Because they are aromatic, they actually get into the air and they are penetrated into the meat, and they're not good for you. So stay away from longer or high temperature cooking procedures of meat like grilling. The next thing on the list is vegetable sources of protein like peas, legumes that contains chickpeas, pulses, and many other varieties of legumes. These have both protein and fiber. Protein plus fiber is a really great combo. What we actually saw in meat, that meat had great amount of protein but did not have good amounts of fiber. It's very low in fiber. That's why I recommend leafy greens every time you have a portion of meat make sure you consume leafy greens or cruciferous vegetables with it, because that would actually be the fiber part. This would be the protein part. But if you're consuming peas, beans, and legumes, that contains both fiber and protein, both of which have been shown to have lower spikes in glucose, lower spikes in insulin, increase your satiety, decrease your appetite, and increase your fat burning process. Because of the less insulin release, you would actually be not putting on a lot of water weight, and you would be flushing excess sodium and excess water from your body. If you're consuming these things, make sure you soak them in water, because these contain a lot of hard digesting starches. Because of that, if you consume them without properly cooking them or without soaking them in water first, you would actually have a lot of bloating issues. Many of vegan diets, if they consume a lot of legumes, you would think that they would have a lot of bloating, but most vegans are fully aware that you can reduce bloating by just dipping them in water for about 7 to 8 hours before cooking them. The second last thing on the list is nut and nut butters. Because nuts are really good sources of fat, especially peanuts, almonds, cashews, pistachios, walnuts. Walnuts are really brilliant sources of omega-3s. They contain DHA, which your body can convert into omega-3s and absorb them. And they actually have shown to increase brain function, cognition, and even memory. Walnuts have also shown to decrease anxiety and depression. Even peanuts, having just 2 tablespoons of peanut butter a day, has been shown to decrease the risk of depression, because peanuts consume magnesium. Now what magnesium does is, in the brain we have this neurotransmitter called glutamate, and glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter. So many people with anxiety or with generalized anxiety disorders, they have high glutamate activity or high cerebral cortex activity. Maybe that's because of overthinking, or maybe that's because of having these feelings of fear every time they do something different or they are in a new environment. What magnesium does is it goes on to the glutamate receptors and blocks the glutamate receptors. If you consume more magnesium, you would have less glutamate activity. That would lead to better control of anxiety and depression. Women that have preeclampsia or eclampsia, that's a condition when you have abnormally high blood pressure levels in your last trimester or just before giving birth to a baby. What we do is we give them magnesium sulfate. What magnesium does is it reduces the blood pressure readings. So now you know that magnesium is really good for you, and one of the best sources of magnesium is nuts, and actually peanuts and walnuts. The last thing on the list is coffee, tea, and dark chocolate. Coffee is a really good source of caffeine. Tea is a really good source of caffeine and theophylline. And chocolate is a really good source of caffeine and theobromine. All of these chemicals have been shown to reduce inflammation, promote cardiovascular health, give you a feeling of satiety, keep you energized, and actually decrease your appetite. If you consume black coffee the first thing in the morning, make sure you add about a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of MCT oil. If you've not heard before of the MCT oil, it's actually medium chain fats that you add to your coffee. If you do not have a store that has MCT oil available, you can even get coconut oil, because coconut oil is also rich in medium chain fatty acids. That would give you a quick source of energy, and the butter would actually give you a lasting source of energy, so you would feel much more fuller. Thank you so much. If you like the video, make sure you subscribe, because that would give me this happy face. Take care. Goodbye.